when we get to the place of questioning what is next, it usually is associated with something that we feel like we have to do. There's always going to be a to-do list, but who and how do I want to be?
Welcome to Taking Care of Lady Business, where we get real about what it takes to succeed, whether it's in business, life, or both. I'm talking to game-changing and visionary women who've broken barriers, built empires, and redefined success on their own terms. They'll share their strategies, secrets, and the no BS advice you need to rise to the top. I'm your host, Jennifer Justice, also known as JJ. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. I'm Jennifer Justice. Today, we have Tai Beauchamp. She is an entrepreneur, a wellness advocate, and the founder of Morning Mindset with Tai. Hello, Tai. How are you?
Hi, JJ. How are you?
I am good. I'm so happy to be talking to you today. I've known you for so long, and just seeing your transitions through your journey and, of your whole career. And I'm really excited to talk to you and have everyone else hear about it today.
I am super excited. I mean, I was, for a moment, I was going to start to do years. And then I was just like, I don't want to date us that way. But I feel like it's been at least 20 years or close to 20.
It has to be, right?
Yeah, if not.
Yeah.
It's so funny when that starts to happen. And it's just like, you're like, 5 years, 10 years. And then you're like, when you know people 20 years plus, it's like kind of crazy.
And I mean, we were teenagers, obviously.
We were babies in the crib, literally.
I love it. So tell us, like, what does it mean to be a wellness advocate, and how did you get here?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Well, interestingly enough, I feel like I was always a wellness advocate. I think professionally, in many ways, I was a wellness advocate, but didn't know that language and didn't know to assign that language when I started my career. What it means to me today is really helping to reshape the language that we use around understanding not only identity, but overall well-being, especially for women, what that looks like, how you access that, how you tap into that, how you nurture that, how you, really live it and embody it. And it's interesting. I was having a conversation some months ago with the CEO of Sephora, Artemis Patrick, who I adore. And she asked me, what is another word for wellness? And I said, I'm going to come back to you on that. And the next day I text her and I said, life. Wellness is life. And so I think, we've lived in a kind of ecosystem where we placed wellness over here. And now we're starting to talk about it a little bit more in our everyday lexicon, professionally, personally. And, Generation Z will not let you not talk about wellness. So it's definitely of a certain time. But I think wellness is really life. And so how did I get here? In my own personal experience, burnout multiple times, questioning and having curiosity around what life would look like, should look like, and more importantly, what I wanted it to feel like. And, professionally, I think I've always been in this space, quite frankly. When I think about my career of starting my years as an editor at Oprah, and then at 17, where it was always about helping women and girls feel seen. It's just an evolution of that. So now I stand on that professionally, in the spaces I take up, where I speak, where I create content, where I produce TV, where I host. And so that's what makes me a wellness advocate, I think.
What was that period of time where you got to that burnout that made you think? Because I think so many of us, obviously with the same generation, we're not Gen Z, where it is just like you hustle, go. The more you work, the better you are. Earlier in the office, last to get, leave, like not even thinking about it. And still, as much as we talk about how these things are not good, people are still doing it all the time, right? And not setting those boundaries. So it's like, I don't think I really came to it until I started my own company, So what was it for you? Well, when did you know that you were like burnt out and like could not do this anymore? or
I've
work like
had
you were?
multiple. I've had multiple burnouts. The first
Yeah.
time I burned out was, and I've talked about this widely, when I was 26, because I became beauty director at 17 magazine when I was 25. So, first to the office, last to leave, managing a staff, some of them older than I, working in an industry that, required a lot of you, not just to perform, but I think to present while performing, which is a whole other thing that we could talk about when we think about the idea of wellness. So I burnt out then. And then I think, I also then became a caregiver to my grandmother. I don't know if you remember that. I was a caregiver
Mhm.
to my grandmother from the time I was 28 until she passed almost 6 years ago. So I was doing that. I'm going to silence this. I'm sorry. I was doing that. And also, you know, I was also like working and running a business, and I had founded my own company by that time. I was consulting. I had multiple clients. So I've had it time and time again. And then after that, trying to question what was next. And I think that was the thing, when we get to the place of questioning what is next, it usually is associated with something that we feel like we have to do.
Mhm.
And the illumination came for me. There's always going to be a to-do list, but who and how do I want to be? And so I think most recently, when I moved from New York City to LA full time 7 years ago, there were all these questions that were looming for me, specifically not around what I wanted to do because I had done so much, but who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up in that.
Right.
And that brought me to a new understanding and a new approach to wellness, which I don't think is formulaic for anyone. I don't think it's going to look the same for everyone. For some people, it's a Pilates class. For some people, it's a yoga class. For some people, it's deadlifting. For other people, it's sitting in savasana. So for some people, it's not even putting language to it. It's being still. For other people, it's writing. Other times, it's community. Other times, it's how do you support your financial health. So there's so many nuances and elements to it, which is why I've just come to, living a life that is fully supportive of enhancing and elevating who I'm called to be.
And what exercises were you doing in order to figure this out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started hiking,
Yeah.
as one does when they move to Los Angeles. JJ, when you move
Yeah.
to LA, it's like, you're either going to be out at the beach or in nature somehow. And I moved in front of Runyon Canyon, and then I definitely had put on some LBs that I wasn't happy with. I've always had an appreciation for nature, even though obviously living in New York City, it's a very different type of nature that we experience here. And I'm in New York right now. And I lived in front of Runyon Canyon. I was like, I'm just going to take my ass out and hike every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on hikes. And as I was hiking, I started to hear more clearly from God, or, depending on what you believe, spirit. I say God. I started to hear from God. I started to connect with nature. I understood that hiking was a journey. It was one foot behind the other, and wasn't that life, right? Sometimes you're, feeling like you're going to fall apart. Sometimes you're out of breath. You can't breathe. Other times you're super empowered and you're excited to get to the top. And then other times you're excited to walk down. So I started to really kind of absorb that experience as a metaphor. And I think that took me to really kind of deepening my own wellness journey, and then designing experiences and opportunities for other women to tap in to their wellness journey.
I mean, part of it is, as women, right? We always feel like we have to be taking care of other people before we're taking care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You even talk about taking care of your grandmother. Like, was that ever a conversation you had with yourself? Like, to allow yourself to?
Oh, 1,000%. It's a conversation I have it's with myself daily.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, with to-do lists or with things that I have to get done. And I do think that part of what has to happen we're in a season of reconciliation, like from a social standpoint, from an environmental standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint. And I think part of the reconciling that's happening, that we're seeing in all the spaces, you know what I mean? In all the industries, we're seeing it, right? In politics, we're seeing it everywhere. Is that with this reconciliation, we're going to have to be committed to new behaviors in order to reset.
Right.
And I unfortunately don't necessarily believe that everyone is going to have the awakening to do it at the same time, but there are going to be thought leaders like yourself and those who listen here who are questioning, have curiosity around what that looks like. And so now for me, it's not even a question. The reconciliation is that every single day I'm like, okay, like this morning, I went to the gym. We were in the gym by 7. I stayed in the gym for an hour and a half, which is definitely a luxury. I also realized that there are some things in my life that afford me this. I don't have any biological children. I do own businesses, so that's its own thing. But then I decided I needed a walk. I needed to go outside. So I walked the West Side Highway. So, and every day won't look the same. So I think it's the grace that we want for ourselves, we extend to ourselves, and then we give the grace to others.
Yeah, so true. I
Yeah.
even yesterday, I was like reading a book for a minute. I was like, I can do this. It's fine. I don't
You
have
can
to be
read
like,
that
oh,
book.
yes, exactly.
But I mean, how is
Like,
that for you? Like, what are
well,
those boundaries like for you, especially with, children and business and entrepreneurship and
yeah,
obviously
I try to really focus all of my working time when they're not here. Like the second they leave, for school until when they come back. And I really try not to do things on the weekend. And even if I want to catch up or work on the weekend, I'll send an email that's scheduled to go out at 8 a.m. It won't actually go out when I write it. So if anybody gets an email at exactly 8 a.m., I wrote on Monday, I
it was
wrote it over.
scheduled.
Yes. And I started doing text scheduling too. So I don't, start to engage, because it's like, that might be my time that I think about doing things, not necessarily theirs. And I don't really want to engage, but I have to get it off of my desk, my chest, off my head, out of my brain. So I've really tried to do that. And, thankfully I have a dog. So I get outside at least 3 times a day, you know what I mean? And, to go walk her. And, so that's so helpful as well, honestly.
But I love the scheduling part of it too, because that's part of the reconciliation. You're telling yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, I need to get this off. And if that works for you, you get it off. But then you're also honoring what the other, parameters or expectations of the person who is receiving it. And that's what I mean. Like, the fact that Americans especially, and then you level that with the way that women over the course of the last 50 years have made progress. And I'm grateful for that. The way that we work, it's not normal.
Yeah.
And it's not about it not being normal. It's not healthy. It's not wise. It's not sustainable.
Yes.
And actually, I actually feel like now that I can look back on my work life over the course of the last 27 years, I'm grateful for it. But it wasn't, I don't know if it wasn't just unhealthy. I think it was also compromising.
Yeah.
It was definitely compromising, and I question compromises now. I question what needs to compromise, what deserves compromising.
Right.
Where do I need to be emphatic? Where do I need to stand firm? And I don't know if that's just this age. At 47, I just think you have these awakenings, and you're like, so.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it does give you the luxury, right? Time and experience of looking back and thinking what works for you and what does not, right? That's, and those collective experiences, you can't ignore them, and they become intuition. So, no, very much, you have to trust them, and, take note for sure.
I love that collective experiences become intuition. I love that. I mean, because that is experience plus knowledge equals wisdom.
Right.
And the wisdom becomes intuition because it's what's been guided. That's what's guided you before what you know. And I think that's really good. Like, how do we make wisdom our intuition, like what you know, and then you don't question it. You just flow with it. And the thing for me on the other side is I do know, like I said, it's not without compromise, but I question the compromise, and I'm intentional about what is compromise. And is it a choice? Is it something that I can get behind, support, or even be like, you win? Like it's a tap out, because sometimes it is that. Like, I think, getting to this place now where I don't feel a desire to be everywhere. I actually enjoy saying no. not, in a negative way, but it's like,
Yeah. But you know what you enjoy, you've been through it all. We've all had, we both have very big lives in our past, very big lives. And like to slow that down and, make it a little more small is like a nice thing,
yeah. And small means easy to me.
Yeah.
Small means like more effortless and also assured. I had this I haven't shared this. I had this crazy thought this morning. I was texting with my management team because I'm in pre-production on several things. On a show that we just got greenlit with BET, which I'm super excited about because I missed hosting and producing. That's very natural for me. And then I'm also in pre-production for a hike and experience, which the ones in LA, when they're supported and sponsored, draw upwards of 350 people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in pre-pro for both of those things. And I shared with my manager today, I was like, as I'm thinking about what wellness means to me, I feel like I'm really being called to a different level of ministry. And I've never articulated or said this out loud in this way. I felt called to ministry in some way in the past. And I literally was working out today. I was like, could this be real? I was like, no, I need to talk to God a little bit longer to find out what that means and what this looks like before I, start signing up for seminary or anything like that. But
like, that's for next year's podcast, right?
Right. So then I'll be back and it's like, oh, pass. Anyway, but I think to that point around sometimes when we think about our experiences, how they evolve, we often associate those with loss. We often associate anything that we experienced in the past with how we've evolved or moved that, oh, that no longer happened. We lost that. Like I've been in that space specifically, even with business, but in life. And now I'm starting to think about, well, what did I gain? So it's a reframing of even some of the things that floated my boat so super high, 15 years ago. Like how fun it was to be invited to some of the events that we were at. And now it's like, well, I gained that experience then, but now the gain for me is actually having quiet time. And I'm like, it might not mean, accounts receivables in the millions like they were. And I actually still see that as gain.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like small being more like a quantity versus, quality versus a quantity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you just mentioned your production, et cetera. Let's start first with Morning Mindset with Tai and what that is and how you came to it.
Hiking really is how it came to me. But during the time that I moved to Los Angeles, I was also like, grieving. She hadn't yet transitioned fully. But my grandmother was paralyzed and bedridden for 13 long years with a feeding tube in New Jersey. So I was driving back and forth. That was incredible. And it was a gain to be able to be a caregiver to someone but it was heartbreaking. And when I moved to LA, I was kind of in a spiritual rut. And so I just decided, similar to actually how I recommitted today, JJ. So I don't know if this all means something because I really did just recommit today after a very fun-filled weekend in the Hamptons.
Oh my!
To a different level of intentional wellness and caregiving to myself. I started just saying like every morning I was going to get into, reading my devotionals, journaling, really reflecting on how I wanted to embody the day and what I wanted that to look like. And then I started going on IG Live every day, usually at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it was very early and it was during COVID. And I invited people on this journey to tap in spiritually while we were all in the house during COVID. And the IG Live really grew. It went from like 35 people in the live every day to like 250 people on the live every single day. And an incredible cult following of diverse people, which was really incredible to me. And so then people were like, well, I want to hike with you. And I was like, okay. So I put up a graphic to come hike with me. And the first time 32 women showed up. The next month, 66 people showed up, a lot of whom I didn't know. The next month, 89 people showed up, and the following month 110 people showed up. And at the time I was still doing the live, so I was seeing how this virtual community was developing, but obviously there was a thirst and a hunger for experiences, which I have always enjoyed creating. And so that's how it was birthed. And from there, I developed a curriculum that we affirm, we move, we connect, we reset. And it's kind of a formula for your wellness experience. You affirm yourself, you affirm God, nature, spirit, other people next to you. You move your body, you move and shift energy, you connect with yourself, you connect with others, you connect with God, you connect with nature. And then you reset. So then you pause to really kind of reestablish like this cadence of being so that you can do it all over again. So that's how Morning Mindset started. I mean, it's crazy to think it's been almost 4.5 years. Our hikes now have touched close to 10,000 people. We've expanded them where we do them almost monthly, probably every 6 to 8 weeks now in Los Angeles because of my travel schedule. We partner with brands like Lululemon, Victoria's Secret, Cadillac, AG1, BET, which we host a huge hike for BET weekend. And this is our 3rd year doing it in a row. That's what I have coming up soon. W Hollywood, there are all these. So it's become this experiential, almost half-day wellness experience. And I've curated from that retreats in Bali. We have another retreat coming up in Bali. I'm hoping to do something in for women leaders, just to kind of reframe what it means to be well, to be whole, and to live life. So.
And so what does that mean? So how, if somebody's listening, how do they engage with it? And is it like a subscription service? Just like talk the details.
I love that we're talking business because, I love business.
Yeah, we're taking care of lady business, girl.
We're taking care of the lady business. So we're moving to subscription service. And also the plan is to actually create communities, localized communities where we have ambassadors lead those. And then they can obviously take the curriculum that we've designed with other resources that we build on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, and implement them within their community. So my vision for this is multi-pronged and multi-leveled. The first step in these communities will almost be like a Girl Scouts of sorts. So you have your troops in localized communities, but then virtually we will have curriculums that will be developed not only by myself, but other wellness leaders that they can tap into. So
amazing. And when is that all happening?
So the plan is to launch actually the localized communities and the ambassador program in September. It's hopefully going to align with the TV show that we have coming out in August on BET, because all of that kind of speaks to the community of intergenerational connection with women in particular. But we invite everyone, like we have all different types of people that come to our experiences, but centering like the development of women especially.
And so what is like, talk a little bit more about the show. The show's coming out in August.
We don't have a name yet, but we're scheduled to launch in August. I am knocking on some wood because we know how production cycles and schedules go. But the show concept is, and it's one that I co-created along with my management team at Crowd and also the good people over at BET who I've had a long-standing relationship with. And the concept is really looking back and helping this next generation navigate kind of some of the issues that they feel challenged by, but they also feel stuck in, by creating a board of advisors, with me being in the chair and having 2 other experts in their specific fields where we give them loving, tough love in order to solve whatever their challenge is. So for a lack of a better term, or even assignment, like if you think about Queer Eye meets Ayanla Fix My Life meets a little bit of Apprentice.
I love it.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so it all ties in back to Morning Mindset with Tai though as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, the essence of Morning Mindset with Tai is like how do we evolve up? How do we, really elevate ourselves and one another. I have always been, like you, a mentor of so many. And, while I love Gen Z for a lot of their boldness, a lot of, what I believe are high expectations around what they should get out of life, we also, to your point, have some wisdom. And I'm really excited to share that in a loving way, but also one that, directs them on a path that I think is going to really also fortify them from a different standpoint, because I feel like there's so much external noise. And so I think that that's a mindset play. That's part of the reason why we're still playing with the title, because we definitely want to integrate some of that change your mind aspect type thing, elevate your life. But yeah, it's the ethos of Morning Mindset with Tai for sure.
I love it. And where do you want to grow this? What is your ultimate goal?
Oh my gosh. JJ, I will add, and I don't know if we can talk about this with Lady Business, because there are those times where I feel like I said, there are things that I love saying, hands off, I'm stepping back, I'm chilling out. This is a different season of life. And then there's the other piece where I'm just like, I feel so called and I want to do it all. So the vision is very, very expansive. And I'm just being honest and mindful with myself that what was built organically deserves to stand up in all the ways. Mm-hmm. But I would love to have mindset communities. I feel very strongly that it's about, having shared values and not necessarily like-mindedness.
What's the difference?
There are a lot of, I think for me, I realize that even when I think about the show concept and having people with different expertise and mindsets and mind frames, it's about the spirit and the value of it is that we want to support this next generation. We want to offer our insight and wisdom. We might also learn, right? But I don't think it's as important to be, same like-minded as it is to be like-valued. And those are the people I want to build with. And I'm sure, you would probably share this sentiment, and I'd be curious to hear when we say, we want to work with like-minded people, maybe. But for me in this day and age, it's people who share or have similar values. That is more important to me.
Like-minded, meaning it's like, it can be just an echo chamber. So how are you changing anything?
1,000%.
Whereas same values, we all care about the betterment of children or animals or the planet, but we're all going about it a different way, right?
1,000%. Okay. That's exactly it.
I'm so excited for you.
No, it's a good place. It feels like a really good place to be in. I mean, I also, I think products will probably come at some point, but I don't want to rush that either. Having launched a product business in the past, I think, it's also a very interesting landscape now. And I think so many people are launching products because everyone wants to leverage social media in order to quote unquote drive sales. And it just looks different. Yeah. And I think, going back to my values, I also feel very strongly that I want it to be something that enhances people's life. And it is more of a necessity than something just to have. Right. So I think all of this, it's kind of elevated consciousness for me and how we live, and wanting to apply as much of that framework of how I live to the work that I do as well.
Right. You walk the talk.
I try. I think that makes my grandmother proud.
Good. I love that. So if people are trying to find Morning Mindset with Tai, how do they do that?
morningmindsetwithtai.com. Also at Morning Mindset with Tai on IG, at Taibo on Instagram. I have not really mastered the TikTok thing because it just feels like one other thing to do, but I probably should master the TikTok thing. But you can sign up for our newsletters at morningmindsetwithtai.com. And we don't send a ton, but we definitely send some important information about our experiences and events. And also, what's happening in the Morning Mindset with Tai universe.
So, with your subscription, and that's going to start in September. And I suppose while you're doing the communities, right? It's like so many people are jealous they don't live in LA.
Yeah, no, I mean, part of the reason that I felt like it was necessary to do, so two things. We also produce corporate wellness experiences. So, you know, because there is this curriculum, No Morning Mindset with Tai is identical, even though there are these same kind of like experiences. We've done hikes and experiences here in New Jersey and had 150 people. The key for me is that this is something I want to be, that can be easily replicated without me being there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it took, which is why the curriculum is really important. I had the great opportunity to produce and curate wellness for Deborah Lee's Leading Women Defined over the course of the last 2 years. And one time I couldn't be there. So, you know, I hired a practitioner that could facilitate some of those things that I needed. And we also have other practitioners, because part of it is dance. Sometimes we dance, sometimes we move, you might paint. It's all of these developmental wellness and well-being experiences kind of mashed into one larger experience. And so once I realized that it could happen without me, that is part of the reason that we want the subscription. But then we'll also have the larger community base where you can come back. Yeah. Because again, those shared values, like we've had people come to the events and we have something called sister circles or community circles, depending on what the makeup of the attendees look like. And we've had people come and they have found their attorneys, they have found their accountants, but they've also found people to hang out with, you know. And so when I was looking at that, it's like, obviously you often think you have a shared, you know, something in common that you like. But when you bring people together, especially physically in more intimate settings of 100 people or 150, and, you know, perhaps not the largest space, you find that intimate connections can really form. And that's really, I think that's really at the core of what I desire, is to have humanity feel more human.
And build those connections, right? I mean, that's where change can really happen. We're so used to doing everything virtually to this day, you know? And I feel like all those like things in real life are really just starting to happen again, like 5 years later, which is crazy.
It's crazy. It's taken so long, but I know that's how I know we're ready for it.
And so every morning you do mindset?
We don't do morning mindset every morning. I mean, a podcast is in the works. It's getting the TV show up first and foremost. And then we're navigating what that next kind of regular connection looks like, because also from a monetary standpoint, podcasts are not generating as much revenue anymore. It's just a different landscape. So just thinking about what those look like. Is it an app? So we're thinking through some of those business models.
So much going on.
So much
ways to engage. That's great. I love it.
So much.
I know, which means that you have a lot to do. So I'll let you go, but we can't let you go until we ask you the one question we ask everyone. And that is, what is the worst advice you've ever received?
Now, especially in this marketplace, I think when people say that you should use all of your money to start your business, if you can find investors and be very strategic and smart about how you design the partnership with them, so that they're, you know, not taking more equity than necessary. But I think, you know, raise sooner rather than later. That would be one of my lessons.
Good. Yeah. Not, you know, because a lot of women don't do that, right? We think they have to do everything and build it up. Yeah.
And I also think that, you know, especially for women, I do think that there's something about holding and keeping equity, which I think is really important for generational wealth. But also I think in this market and in this landscape, you need a lot more resources in order to grow and scale, in order to have something that will be potentially acquired and of interest for acquisition.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that if you have it, and you can access the capital, I know it's not always the easiest for us. And as someone who was raised, I know it's not easy, but I think that if it's that great, get the resources to build it the right way.
Right. Don't sacrifice everything that you've built. Right. I love it. Thank you. So great. Thank you so much.
It's always so great to see you. Are we done? Sorry, because I want to ask about the kids.
I love it. Well, we will sign off. We just told everybody how they can contact Tai. And thank you for listening to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. Thanks to MedJet for supporting the Lady Business podcast. If you're hospitalized or your security is threatened while traveling, they can get you home. I'm a MedJet member and have been for years. Everyone who travels should be. Enroll before your next trip at medjet.com. Thanks for tuning in to Taking Care of Lady Business. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review. And also share this episode with a friend who needs that extra push to own their success. If you want more strategy stories and exclusive content, follow us on TikTok at Taking Care of Lady Business, on Instagram at thejustice.dept and Jennifer Justice L, or visit our website at thejusticedept.com. Taking Care of Lady Business is a production of Lady Business LLC.